Welcome to our live stream. Today we are going to dive into some ideas to help you improve your current or future live stream. Sometimes it can be difficult to make sure everyone with your live stream, from your live stream audience to your stream operators and even your organization's leadership will have great experiences. And so we wanted to be here to offer advice, solutions, ideas, tips, whatever we can to ensure the best experience for your people. Today will look a little different than some of our previous streams, since this isn't really a tutorial, but more of a conversation. If you don't know Brad Weston, I'd love to introduce him to you. He's one of the owners at Renewed Vision. Hey, Brad, can you give us a little insight on what you're going to talk about in this stream?
Hey, Cody, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'd just like to talk about how we arrived where we are now, how ProPresenter 7 started and how it has evolved over the course of the last year, and then discuss various ways that ProPresenter can be used in incorporating ProPresenter into your live streaming environment and some of the best practices for that based on the types of signal flows that your particular productions have, and just have a general discussion about best practices for live streaming.
Awesome. And then we're going to talk with Rezzy a bit about their products and how they can help in live stream environments. And Rezzy even has a sweet gift to offer to you later on to help with your live stream. But first, thanks for joining us today, Nate. How's it going in Colorado?
It's awesome. Probably not as hot as Texas. Doing well, Cody. Thanks, man.
Actually, it's raining outside and it's been in the 60s for the past few weeks, so it's not too bad here. But in this stream, we've got an awesome story to share from Southwest Church in California as well. And then we're going to take a few minutes to answer your questions that you've been giving us in the comments. So make sure to ask questions throughout this whole process so that we can be able to answer them at the end. So Brad, would you be able to talk to us a bit about how people can start to embrace live streaming, how ProPresenter are going to help out with that along the way?
Sure. So we released ProPresenter 7 on January 20th of 2020, not having any idea what the future held for any of us. But it had a great deal of new features. But with that, we also came out with a new model for how we were going to continue to do business. It had been 4.5 years since we released ProPresenter 6, and there was a lot that we held back with regards to features that we were developing over those 4.5 years. And we wanted to make that what we call the customer communication loop cycle, the feedback loop cycle, far quicker for our customers, which is to say that we wanted to continue to add value to the software and provide features to our customers as quickly as possible. So that was a new methodology that we introduced at the same time that we introduced ProPresenter 7. And so when COVID happened, we immediately pivoted with the future development plans that we actually had for ProPresenter and focused on the needs that our customers had to fit this new reality that COVID presented, which is to say a lot of organizations were going to live streaming. Very, very few places were actually meeting in person. And so that to that end, we took advantage of the multi-screen capabilities that we introduced in ProPresenter 7. We saw how our customers were using those multi-screen capabilities with other products to live stream to other products. And we just wanted to enhance that much further. So we released Rtmp Streaming as a part of ProPresenter. And then we went a step further, and with Rtmp Streaming, we noticed that, okay, if you're going to be using both live elements coming into the computer as well as pre-canned video files and audio files inside the computer that are played both on the live stream as well as inside a room, we've got to be able to handle audio routing. So we added that functionality in there. So a lot of 2020 was really dedicated to us expanding ProPresenter's capabilities specifically for live streaming. And the ultimate step that we took with that was to actually partner with Rezzy. We had been involved with Rezzy, formerly known as Living as One. We'd been involved with them at various trade shows and church conferences over the years, and we were really impressed with the quality of their streaming and their story, because and Nate will talk a little bit about that because it was very similar to our story. And that we were both spawned from church needs. But in addition to that, we were really impressed in looking at their Facebook groups and looking at their customer experience, how rabid or what raving fans that they had as an organization. And that's really the telltale sign that they're doing something right whenever the fans are such raving fans. So Rezzy was kind of the final step in our streaming solution. We were really privileged to be the first software encoding solution to implement Rezzy. So ProPresenter can be used as an all-in-one solution, which is to say you can stream just when you take your computer out of the box with a web camera or whatnot. You can actually go live at precisely the time that you want to. That's kind of an advantage of ProPresenter, is that even with the Rezzy stream, you can go live whenever you want to just by starting the capture. And in addition, Rezzy implemented this idea of destination groups whenever they created the ProPresenter Rezzy stream, that is the ability to actually, with a single click, go live to both the internet from your own website, as well as to YouTube and Facebook. So you can actually specify destination groups for all the locations that you want your video stream to go to. So that's a big deal. Best quality. It's the best quality. Technically, the best quality for doing any kind of overlay is we talked in the past when we were using it in live events, where your video switcher is the last stop in your signal flow before it goes to the screens. The best manner of doing that is with an alpha key and fill. Well, in fact, when you're doing live streaming, the best look is to actually bring a live video input, and then we're overlaying words on top of that. That would be the best quality because you're not having to deal with keying out anything. It literally is just laying graphics over that. And you can kind of see the differences in the quality that you actually get whenever you're laying graphics over that. So
yeah, let me interrupt you there.
Actually doing live streaming. Yeah, go Cody.
I was thinking about the all-in-one solution point you were making. For a lot of people, I think there are solutions that maybe they want to use lots of different products and lots of different hardware and software together to make a solution. But a lot of times that can be complicated. And so sometimes the best solution could even be for someone the easiest and most turnkey solution that's all in one. And so like ProPresenter kind of promotes that because it's able to do your lyrics for your in-person stuff as well as your online on your online stuff. But also it can stream, it can handle audio and handle video and switching all that at once. I mean, like if you're looking for something that you want to be easy to use for your people, but you also want to make sure that like you can easily go to whatever destination you want to. It just seems like an easy all-in-one solution. But then you also mentioned just being able to overlay graphics and content. And so I was just thinking about how, like at our church, we use ProPresenter to stream. And right now we go from one computer to the other computer. And so one computer is handling content and the other computer is handling our actual live stream. And so we have this really good looking setup for pretty cheap and inexpensive. And being a small church, it's nice because we don't have to have tons of gear that we load in our portable setup. We just set up the two computers, and then our graphics look good because we're not keying them out or using any sort of external gear to make them work right or look good. Like it maintains our opacity levels. The content just layers on top of each other and looks good. So I was just thinking about that when you were talking about that.
Yeah, it's a great point. And just to play off of something that you said, while it can be an all-in-one solution, it's not the right solution for all environments. We designed ProPresenter and added this functionality in so that you actually have the capabilities when you need it. And I think one of the great benefits of having ProPresenter Resi Stream as a software encoder is there are so many times when it's not convenient for you to actually take that box out of your the rack space in the engineering center that you actually have in your organization and move it to a field. And yeah, there were a lot of churches that were meeting out in front of the in the field in front of their churches or in outside locations in the era of COVID. So the ability to just bring a laptop to those locations, plug in a video feed, and even plug in a cell phone for your internet connection. There were a lot of stories of how people were doing that just so they could actually share their story and broadcast from locations that they wouldn't typically broadcast from. Anyway, ProPresenter 7 also has the ability, we introduced this idea that you could actually have multiple screens. And with that, you have the ability, whenever you actually do come back in person, is to have different looks for the same lyrics. So when you're showing lyrics, you can have them really, really large and in the center of the screen with, say, a motion background, but then simultaneously do a lower third with the live video input to your video feeds. And there's a example shown on the screen of the various looks that you can have. You can transform slides all at the same time, do lower thirds at the same time that you're doing full screen graphics overlays. We have the ability, like I mentioned before, to route audio. This becomes a real issue when you have some elements that are live and you need to take live video elements from a soundboard into ProPresenter for your video stream. But then at the same time, you don't want to have a loop back when you're actually playing video inside the room and then taking that back from the soundboard. So we've done a lot of different tweaks with regards to giving you the ability to handle audio in a professional way to ensure that the experience that's in the room is the highest quality it can be, and the experience on the video stream is the best that it can be. So there's various ways of operating ProPresenter. We've heard customers that are in fact using it as a single solution. So the ProPresenter operator is the last stop. They're responsible for starting the video stream and scheduling and doing all that kind of stuff. There are others that have a separate computer, like Cody was mentioning, where you can actually just bring in your video feed into ProPresenter and then stream from that separate ProPresenter machine. There's a lot of different capabilities, and there's no one size fits all. We're always interested in seeing how customers are actually using, and we're going to hear a story of a unique way that a customer used ProPresenter with Rezzy a little bit later. So anyway, there's a lot that we've done with ProPresenter 7 over the course of the last year to add value to our customers as it relates to streaming. There's a lot more that we have planned for productions of all kinds, whether it be in person and streaming. So we're looking forward to sharing some of those things a little later on this year as well. So
yeah, and some of that may have sounded like a sales pitch for you to use ProPresenter for your live stream, but the reality is the goal of this live stream is to talk about like how can you improve your workflow and your setup. And sometimes maybe using different hardware or software is what's going to help you improve. I mean, if you're already using ProPresenter 7 as your content for your content, for pushing it out, I mean, you're already at a place where you're in a good spot to do some of these things, even if you're not using ProPresenter to stream. But then with using ProPresenter to stream, you're also adding some levels of ability for your operators, for the people watching, that it almost takes your stream to a next level just by using ProPresenter itself as your streaming platform instead of using something else. Just speaking of like that, going back to the layering content, it's not going to look the same if you're doing it with hardware or if you're doing it with other software. But if you're using ProPresenter to stream, you could take your live stream to a new level by layering your content and making it look clean. And so that's the sort of things that we're talking about in this, is that we really want to just help you guys improve your stream right now, your future stream if you're not streaming, help you get on board with streaming. We're trying to make ProPresenter as easy as possible to stream. And some of that is what we're doing with Rezzy and their ability to push content to different platforms and different streaming destinations. And we've mentioned a little bit about Rezzy while talking about ProPresenter and streaming, since both Rezzy solutions and ProPresenter are like bread and butter, or like a hot dog and mustard. Pick your pairing. Maybe you don't like mustard on your hot dog, you can choose something else. Rezzy and ProPresenter make sense together. But I also realize there might be some of you watching and thinking that you just don't understand what makes Rezzy so great. And that's okay. We have people here to talk about that in a little bit, but the whole point of the stream is to share ideas for improving your current or future live streams. That's why we've talked about how streaming from ProPresenter looks better, since you aren't keying anything, and how lower thirds can look good without needing to do lots of complicated things. But Rezzy plays a significant role in making the experience for live streams better for your audiences watching at home, the operator, and even your leadership making financial decisions. Nate, I'd love to hear from you a bit about what makes Rezzy different from other streaming providers.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And I want to point out too, we had a comment in the chat already, and we're going to actually have some time for Q&A later too. So any questions that y'all have as we're going through today, whether it's related to ProPresenter or Rezzy, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'd love to be able to address them. One of the ones I saw already was something about the AV sync. And so unfortunately, there's not a ton of great options right now for like contribution. So we've built out this studio. We're actually broadcasting, to give some context, we're broadcasting from the Rezzy studio, or from our studio here in Colorado that we're based out of. But we're actually bringing in Brad and Cody through Zoom. So we're seeing a little bit of audio sync off with them, but that's not coming from ProPresenter or from Rezzy or anything. That's just from Zoom, unfortunately. So maybe one day Rezzy will be able to fix that. But for now, we can't do it with millisecond delay like we can to be able to communicate. But to give a little bit of context, because that does kind of bring into a good point of what is the main difference between Rezzy and other streaming providers. To give you a little bit of background about Rezzy and our history, so we actually started out of a church down in Dallas, Texas, not too far from Cody, because we we were trying every streaming solution that existed out there on the market and just had a really bad experience with everything that we tried. We had general unreliability, we had frame drops, and we noticed after a while it was contributing actually to our engagement. We had 30% of people that were leaving our stream after one buffering wheel. We had almost 70% of our audience that were leaving by 2 buffering wheels. And so we said, hey, how do we fix this? There's got to be a better way to stream. And what we figured out was all of the different ways that we were trying were really all based on around about 90% of the same technology. And they all use something called the Rtmp, which I'm sure you've probably heard of. And Rtmp, it sends data like a laser beam. So it's sending data from an encoder to the cloud, but in the natural process of the internet and just even things that you don't notice between you and the 20 hops that your ISP is sending you on between you and wherever you're sending that data, that's going to encounter packet loss. And what happens is if that can't keep up, you're getting frame drops, you're getting glitches, you're getting interruptions and buffering wheels on your stream. And so we said, hey, let's not plan that we're going to have a perfect connection 100% of the time. What we're going to say is, we know we're not going to have a perfect connection 100% of the time, and how do we still have a perfect stream? And what came out of that was something called RSP, Resilient Streaming Protocol. And you may have heard of this, maybe if you saw the webinar before when we released our actual implementation into Rezzy or into ProPresenter. But what RSP does differently than Rtmp is it actually caches that data and sends it on a short delay. So instead of sending that data and saying, hey, we're going to hope that it gets there perfectly right away, like Zoom does, what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, we know that our data is not, is potentially going to encounter roadblocks along the way or packet loss. And we're going to cache that data. We're going to send it and make sure that it gets there perfectly 100% of the time, even through connection interruptions. And that connection interruption can be as long as 90 seconds in some case. You could literally unplug your Ethernet cable and plug it back in, within about 90 seconds and still have a perfect stream. And, you can see this comparison here. This was from Red Rocks, obviously on kind of an extreme situation. I think we did this on cellular, but it just accounts for any of the general issues that you might have and allow you to have 100% frame accurate every frame. Literally, you can kind of think about that. Every frame makes it to the cloud. We account for every frame, making it to your viewer. And so that's the big difference behind Rezzy. And we really didn't want to get into the hardware business at first. We tried other encoders. We said, hey, we've got to be able to, it's 2014 at the time, there's got to be other ways to be able to have encoders that are going to be able to utilize this technology and do it in the way that we wanted to. And there wasn't anything that existed at the time. And so we developed our first hardware encoder that was able to do this process. And then fast forward a few years, we said, we know that hardware, we built these hardware encoders like tanks. They're meant to, sit in your rack and turn it on. You leave it on 24/7. And we said, we know that is not attainable for a lot of churches. And so how do we be able to bring this to more churches in an easier way? And the answer to that was through ProPresenter. So, we've just been so blessed to be able to partner with the ProPresenter guys. Between the feature set that they have, the awesome user experience, and the great support, we were just really excited to be able to partner with Renewed Vision and add this functionality and that reliability within ProPresenter, the same reliability that we have in hardware encoders. So,
Nate, I'd love to come in there.
Yeah.
Later on, I know we're talking about Southwest a little bit. But one of the things they told me was that they actually have I don't know if it was a Prism encoder, but they have one of Rezzy's hardware encoders. And they choose to use ProPresenter as their software encoder with Rezzy now, specifically because of the ease of use.
Yeah.
So like being able to have our partnership and then be able to easily have a live stream trigger when it's supposed to, goes out automatically without having to have someone operator clicking let's go live right now.
Yep.
Is a super huge benefit. But even someone who's already used hardware encoders is using this solution now as their solution, which is pretty unique.
Yeah. And that was always one of the things, right, with Rezzy, we have these hardware encoders, but they're kind of, at the end of the day, they're pretty simple machines. They're doing this task that we talked about to get that video to the destination. But we aren't able to do a lot of things like overlays or, things like switching between multiple sources and stuff like that within this encoder. And that's by design. It's dedicated to do one task and do it really well. But we know that in a lot of cases, like what we're going to talk about with Southwest Church or a lot of other churches, you need to have that all-in-one machine, whether it's because of the situation that you're in or cost or whatever the case might be. So it's been really cool to see churches use it in really unique ways, in a lot of different ways, depending on whatever their unique use cases would be. And we've seen amazing results of churches that, have increased their viewing audience, seen much higher engagement, 50% longer watch times, a lot of good stuff like that. So it's just been really cool to see over the past, 6 months that we've been a part of this, to be able to see churches like Southwest Church and be able to really take what we've designed and really take it to another level too, which is great. So, I think next we're going to talk and share a little bit about how to actually get the most out of ProPresenter Stream. And for that, we have a great guest that's actually with me as well from Rezzy, which is Jennifer Miles, our VP of Product. So, Jen, can you speak a little bit into, from your side, how to get the most out of streaming to Rezzy and using destination groups and scheduling?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that our Rezzy integration works is that we have set up something called destination groups. And destination groups are essentially a pre-configured group that says, I want to go to all of these destinations on the web. And so it might be an embed code that you use with your website or with the Church Online platform, which is a system that we use a lot from a partnership perspective, and then also through Facebook or YouTube. And so we try to make it really easy for a customer, whether they're creating something in the schedule in control or whether they're sitting at their ProPresenter machine, to just start very quickly and distribute to all of those places at the click of a button. And so destination groups is one way to do that. Scheduling in control is another. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about some of our upcoming scheduling work here in a few minutes. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, awesome. And one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about too, first, in terms of choosing your streaming destinations. We often see churches that are streaming to different destinations, whether it's their website or Facebook or YouTube. And there's obviously different advantages for both, and advantages and disadvantages. Facebook and YouTube are obviously the kind of notorious for pulling content that even if you're perfectly entitled to use it, and your website is really where we encourage, even though, obviously there's reasons for it. We're streaming to Facebook in order to get engagement, but there's really reasons for streaming to all of these different destinations. Brad and Cody, what's kind of your perspective on where it makes the most sense to stream to?
It's a lot of our customers talk about streaming to YouTube and Facebook, and that is a great destination for people because people are already on YouTube and they're on Facebook. But I think of YouTube and Facebook as being, and I'm going to speak purely philosophically, my own opinions on this. But from a philosophical standpoint, I equate to saying that our priority having a video streaming to Facebook, I equate it to saying, hey, we're going to have our church services at Dave & Buster's. We're going to take the internet's sites that are run purely to distract people in whatever way possible, and we're going to put our church service in the most distracting place possible. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me personally, because we want people to be able to concentrate on the message. So I'm far more of an advocate for actually streaming to a church website where you can curate the experience, just like you would curate the experience that you're creating when you're welcoming people live into your church. You want to create the most inviting environment possible. Now, I get the desire to have a chat going on, and YouTube and Facebook make those capabilities active. And of course, we're using Facebook for this webinar. But when you're actually using a church online platform or these various platforms to bring in a live video feed, that way you're at least able to specify certain parameters under which people would actually be distracted, so they can actually still be talking about the message or whatnot, but not get distracted by the cat video that just kind of pops up, or the ad for new t-shirts or whatnot. So that's my personal opinion.
Yeah. Even a much more practical, even a practical reason to it is watch times. We've seen streaming to Facebook usually have like 2 to 3 minute averages. YouTube can be 15 to 20 minutes, but your website is often 30 to 50 minutes. And if you want people to engage and watch longer, it's proven that your website is the best choice.
Sorry, Nate, could you repeat that?
Yeah.
It's stunning. The numbers to me are just stunning. And where do you know where those numbers are actually from? Was that
It's based
Was that
on
a Varna study?
It's actually it's based on some information that we've had and actually collected from our viewers as well, but like before and after moving to the platform. So and it's cool because we tell people too, of course, stream to wherever you're going to get the best engagement, wherever you're going to get the most viewers, and there's reasons for all these different destinations. But like sometimes the number of viewers that you actually get, the number of hits can kind of be deceiving because you have to kind of think about what's that number of what do I actually count a viewer, what do I actually count as somebody's engaging, and Facebook and YouTube, their primary goal is not for you to have the most engaging, successful event. Their goal is for you to engage and scroll with all the different content that's possible and with the advertisers' content. And I think it might have even been you, Brad, that mentioned a while ago, or somebody that I talked to that said, if you actually go and, not right now, but if you scroll through Facebook and actually look at the type of content that you're looking at, about every 3 posts, and I did this with my wife yesterday, I was like, go through Facebook, tell me like how many posts that you come across before you see an ad. And she was like, it's every 3 posts I see an ad. And it's like, if that's your church experience, if you're in a bus and you have all these different ads that are coming alongside you, and that's where you're choosing to host your church service, like, man, that's a wonderful outreach, but it's distracting to say the least.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in having Facebook and YouTube as an outlet so that people can in fact discover your church services, or that you can share potentially video clips, maybe of your worship team singing a song or whatnot. And there's nothing wrong with live streaming to those environments, because again, there is that hey, you want somebody to stumble across the messages that you actually have. But I think as far as curating an experience, I think it's a bad place to try and curate an experience for people that you actually want to see your message.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is YouTube and Facebook both have artificial intelligence to actually listen to the music that's actually being played, and they're looking out for copyright infringements. And it doesn't really matter what your whether you actually have a license to play back a specific song or not. If it gets flagged, and if they deem it to be inappropriate or a violation for copyright, they will shut down your stream. And we hear every single week, I see it on Facebook and the various church media groups that I'm involved with. I see instances of that happening to different people. So Nate, can you speak to what you actually do with regards to copyright issues and licensing and that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. That's a big question that comes up, and it's something that we have a lot of discussion about. And honestly, there's a lot of vagueness to it. And I wish we could be clear on what Facebook and YouTube actually do and how they consider an appropriate channel, or how they consider appropriate content in terms of ownership. But even if you talk to CCLI or CVLI directly, they kind of shrug their shoulders and say, sorry, we don't really know. Even if you're perfectly entitled to use your content, if YouTube or Facebook believes that it's possible that somebody might own it, they don't want to get in trouble, and so they'll pull it. Or mute it or whatever. And so that's all part of kind of having that ownership of the content. Obviously, when you sign up for Rezzy, you do sign an agreement that says, hey, to the best of our understanding, we are not streaming anything that we don't have ownership of. But when you have your total control of your streaming experience, when you have what we really say a lot around here is you own your content, that just covers you from a wide range of things. Being able to own your experience, own your content, own your platform from end to end. And there are a lot of awesome platforms that you can use for viewer engagement that'll tap right into that. So you can use Church Online platform. It's amazing to me how many people I talk to that have never heard of Life Church's Church Online platform, which is a free platform to sign up for. You can have all of your branding. You can make it look like a complete custom experience for your church, be able to use chat and a lot of other cool engagement opportunities through there. Brushfire is awesome. Altar Live. There are a lot of great ways where you can take your stream through Rezzy, through an embed code, and pop it into something like one of those platforms. Have a really reliable stream, and then own all of your content and own all of your experience from end to end.
Yeah, I actually had a question to that. Because honestly, I'm just going to express some ignorance here. When I saw several years ago that Life Church was making their Church Online platform free, I was always thinking, oh, so they're going to host my streaming of my video, because that's the most important element that I see when you're talking about bringing your church online. Is it's somewhat synonymous in most people's heads as being, they're going to stream my content for free. That's not what the Church Online platform is. It is merely a container. It has all of the bells and whistles to allow people to engage and chat with other individuals, perhaps go off in a separate virtual room and have individuals pray for one another, to interact whenever they have a host will say, hey, can out there in those that are watching via our video stream, can you raise your hand if you've had some experience or whatnot, to do various polls. That is what the Church Online platform and what these others that Nate is mentioning, Brushfire and the like, those are the kinds of experiences that you can kind of curate and customize for your environment. It is not, and then as part of that, there is a plugin to plug in whatever your video streaming service is, which again could be Rezzy, it could be an Rtmp type of stream, but obviously, but there's advantages to Rezzy as well.
Totally, awesome. Jen, I want to pass it back to you, Cody, unless you have anything else to add.
Nope, I was just gonna say that I know you guys are working on some big changes, and I know Jen had a little sneak peek that she wanted to show what you guys are working on.
Yeah, I jumped the gun a little bit on destination groups a little bit before. I apologize, Jen. I threw you a curveball, but yeah, tell us what's coming up that's fun.
Yeah, well, I think just to kind of continue the conversation about analytics and engagement versus outreach, one of the things that we have coming right now is analytics version 2.0. The thing that really excites me about our new analytics is that it allows you to see number of KPIs. Who are my viewers? How many views do I have? What's their average watch time? But coming soon, you're going to be able to break this information down by platform. So not only will you see it by your embed code, so places like your website or Church Online platform, but you're also going to see that information based on destination. So if I use a stream URL to, let's say, my Roku app or my Apple TV or my mobile app, or I send to Facebook or YouTube, we'll actually be able to pull those analytics in and provide a summary of that information here. So you can evaluate things like Facebook. If I only have a 2 to 3 minute watch time, what can I do to engage people and move them into a platform that I own where I can really manage that engagement experience? So moving them over to like Church Online platform. So this is probably one that I'm super excited about that we just launched last week and are continuing to do work on. The other thing that we have coming, we are in the middle of redesigning control. One of the things that we heard from our customers over the last year was that, especially with COVID, we're not just a broadcast system, we're really an event management system. And so anything that we can do to help our customers manage their events and their broadcast destinations in a simplified way is really important. And so we're redesigning control, moving it into a more kind of event workflow system so that you can have your scheduled events, you can have your AV tech go in and put in their broadcast destinations, or like the Church Online manager go in and do that. But then you can also have the person who's coordinating the events themselves and maybe the communication plan go in and put that information in separately. So being really intentional about our event structure and how to manage those things, when we can hide information, we will. Like, I know most of you don't really want to have to go in and schedule your encoder information at the same time as scheduling my 9 a.m. service. So utilizing those things like destination groups to say at the click of a button, I want to go live, and just set up all the stuff behind the scenes for me to make it really easy. So really excited about what we have coming with scheduling.
So this is actually kind of random, but I kind of wanted to interject a little bit on something. As I was watching the Zoom and I saw a Facebook comment about our Zoom call being out of sync. I think Studio might have even been out of sync on Facebook. This is actually kind of the perfect example of, we didn't plan this, but social media doesn't get things right every time. And so being able to put it on your own destination, if you actually go and look at Rezzy's website where they have the watch where you can watch it there, the audio is in sync. And that's just because if you're using Facebook or if you're using another social media platform, you can have issues like this where it's not going to be perfect. Rezzy is doing their job to make it perfect to Facebook, but Facebook takes it and messes it up. You know, that's usually what happens. That we've experienced that in our own church, whether we were using Rtmp or Rezzy, if we're specifically looking at Facebook, because Facebook has so many issues. And so I just wanted to highlight that point. If you actually go and look at the Rezzy's event on their website, it's perfectly in sync, because that using their platform and stuff is going to be great for you. And that's just goes back to like why Church Online platform, if you're a church, or putting an embed on your own website, could be so powerful. Sorry, I know that was random, had nothing to do with what you were just talking about, but I thought it was worth pointing out.
Yeah, it's like I equate it. It sounds like, you know, occasionally you'll you'll get what we used to call a bad cell when you're using your cell phone. It's just really, really bad connection. You can hang up and immediately call the person back and it sounds great. It's just, oh, you got a bad cell. So I guess we got a bad cell with Facebook now for the audio video sync, which is weird.
Well, like I said, I think a lot of it is Zoom too, unfortunately, and that's something that, as much as we would like, the nature of Rezzy is the resiliency based on a short amount of delay. So we know we're not the best solution if you're trying to like figure out, something right this millisecond. But if you're doing stocks or whatever, but like for those times where you say, hey, we need this to be 100% perfect, but we're okay with a short amount of delay. That's really kind of the trade-off for the benefit of Rezzy. And what's awesome is, we see that we're going to talk about Southwest Church here next and talk about their use case in some really cool and unique new ways, like mobile internet connections. We see that a lot. We just did this at Philo a few weeks ago. I think I saw a few people in the chat that I talked to at Philo, which is awesome. So, Philo is awesome for us. We were in Willow Creek, and we had an internet connection, but there were many times that we unplugged it and just ran it through T-Mobile, and we had ProPresenter Stream, one other encoder and one decoder that was all run through a mobile internet connection. And obviously that's not something that I wouldn't encourage you to run a ton of traffic on a stream through that and trust it with your stream, but that's something that you can do, and you can use mobile internet connections reliably where you normally would not with Rtmp. So one example, I know Southwest Church did this, just like Cody was saying, with a concert that they had done and in kind of an outside venue. Cody, do you want to speak a little bit more towards that?
Yeah, so some of what we're going to talk about with Southwest is cool, but unfortunately, the guy who was originally going to be here to talk about it from their team couldn't make it today. And silly us, who recorded him talking about it yesterday on Zoom, recorded it with him being really small and me being really big. And so we thought I could just talk about it a little bit and show some of the video clips of their setup. But obviously, we talked a bit about Rezzy and ProPresenter together being a great all-in-one solution. And Southwest Church is in Coachella Valley, which in itself is pretty cool. I mean, I wish I was in Coachella Valley. But they're a great example of this because they went from being a church that barely acknowledged live streaming a little bit over a year ago to now being highly focused on their online experience. Dan actually told me that as a church, they basically said they're now a broadcast company. Like if you think about it, churches and all organizations had to make really a switch from how they communicated with people over the past year. And so for some, that meant staying away from in-person for a long time. And so they had to change their mentality from being, we're a live event in-person company, also a church, to a broadcast company. We're trying to reach people in their homes and outside the walls of the church. And the cool thing is they're not just doing that on Sunday mornings. They're doing this as a mentality of, as a church, we want to reach people throughout the week. We want to reach people who are in their homes, who are in their cars. We want to communicate with them. We want to teach them. We want to build into them. And so they've actually taken on ProPresenter and Rezzy and used that as their streaming platform. Again, they were using a hardware encoder previously, but they wanted to make a really mobile setup. And so what if we take a computer, we're using a Mac Mini, that's what they're using. And what if we were to use ProPresenter to take our stream and make it live? And they actually are using a hardware video switcher to make all that possible. You can see in the video that's playing, that's their mobile setup. That's actually in a room that they were doing a broadcast from that they have some permanent gear in as well. But on the left, they have their mobile setup. And so they got ProPresenter running on a Mac Mini. That's live streaming. They have some Blackmagic gear that's bringing in their video. And it looks pretty cool. For the Christmas Eve service, they actually moved around quite a bit and did 7 different services, but they weren't all in the same location. Here's a video clip to watch from the Christmas Eve service that they did out on their lawn, Coachella concert style. So obviously that video looked good, but the audio that was ran through the software streaming setup as well, and that sounded incredible. Brad, I don't know if you've ever, I mean, I know you've been to a lot of conferences and events and sort of stuff, but do you know who that singer was that was on stage? Oh, you're muted.
I actually don't. I couldn't see. From my perspective, it's a really, really, really tiny thing.
Okay, so Aaron Stewart, one of the co-founders of Planning Center, he's got an incredible voice. He actually used to be the worship leader at that church. Now he owns Planning Center and develops their products and does their marketing, that sort of thing. He's the one who sang at that. But yeah, so that just highlights kind of like that was ProPresenter Streaming with Rezzy. And they were bringing all their video inputs in. They used an actual video switcher to switch video inputs, but then they brought them into ProPresenter to then stream online and overlay the graphics. So that was from 700 feet away from their church with iffy internet connection. They're using Rezzy as their streaming provider, and they were able to have perfect streams every time. But the coolest thing they did recently was host a concert from Israel Houghton and Adrian Bailon. Adrian is his wife. Probably more popular than Israel himself, but they were both on stage singing, which is super cool. And it was live streamed using Rezzy and ProPresenter as an all-in-one solution to thousands of people. For legal reasons, we have the audio off while the clip is playing, but I thought it'd be cool to show off at least how it looked and what they were doing there. So that was neat to watch and see a church who didn't care much for audiences outside of their building during the normal experiences now, but they're doing full-blown broadcast quality concerts and experiences. In fact, they're even using the setup for other things besides just Sunday morning, like I was talking about earlier. On Wednesday nights, they offer classes to offer training to people. Okay, yeah. So I thought that setup was really cool, and I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about what Southwest is doing. But as we get closer to finishing our stream, make sure to get any final questions in for us to talk about in just a few minutes. But first, Nate, would you mind talking to everyone about an opportunity y'all are offering at Rezzy right now to help people with their setups?
Yeah, I'd love to. And then I'm actually going to throw back to Jen too to talk about some other exciting stuff that we have going on. But we know that live streaming gets expensive, and we know that there's other pieces of the puzzle that you often need to do. And so we're offering a little opportunity just through the end of June to get started with Rezzy and ProPresenter. Just kind of a thank you to you, and allow you to either have a fun new gear day or just pick up a little something fun for yourself too. So through the end of June, if you get an annual subscription through Rezzy and ProPresenter, we'll actually get you up to $150 gift card through Amazon. So again, we know it's not a ton, but it's a little thank you for us to be able to say, hey, here's a little bit to pick up some of the extra glue that you need, or anything else that might be on your list. And again, just need to sign up through June 30th. We'll drop the link in the Facebook chat, and I think we'll get it out some other ways to ProPresenter's audience. But we love ProPresenter. We love the awesome community that is around ProPresenter, both the ProPresenter team and all of the amazing churches that use it and make up just the awesome user group and everybody that's a part. So you can take advantage of that through the end of June. You can also see a demo of Rezzy. Rezzy.io/demo is a great way to be able to see that and see a full walkthrough of how the platform works, kind of see it in your use case. And so Rezzy.io/demo is the best place to do that. And then Jen, I'd love for you to just speak a little bit more. We have Rezzy as live streaming and multi-site platforms. We're also getting ready to roll out some pretty fun things with Rezzy's implementation in the way that we store and archive videos, and just some ways that you kind of navigate the platform as well. So Jen, can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, one of the things I've loved in the conversation today is that we talk a lot about making workflows easier for customers and how our partnership does that. What we've been working on in the background for the last few months is actually being able to save your live broadcasts once they're finished so that they're archived on our system long term. The thing that's amazing about that for me is that a lot of our customers right now, once they broadcast, they're having to come into Rezzy, into Control, and download their event, and then they have to edit it on their editing computer and then upload it into another hosting place for them to actually add that to their website and their archive locations. And so what I'm really excited about is that we've recently launched to internal customers an on-demand beta program where customers can now take that broadcast and at a click of a button save that, and then be able to add it to their archive site, whether that's their website, whether that's an OTT app, wherever they distribute that long-term content. So really excited about that, and that's a great opportunity here as well.
Cool. Thank you, Jen. That's awesome. Cool. I think that's all I have from Rezzy. Again, we just dropped that link in the chat. Love to see you either on a group demo or take advantage of that opportunity, and we'll get that Amazon gift card your way.
Awesome. Thank you, Nate. So we've been collecting some comments, and we want to be able to answer them for people. We'll definitely continue to answer comments once the stream is over if we didn't get to yours. So don't get too upset if we didn't answer it verbally, but we will answer it in the comments. But someone asked, does ProPresenter 7 allow me to play a video to the live stream only and not in the sanctuary house? For instance, a live outro or video tailored to the online audience experience. I'll answer that. If Brad wants to jump in, he's welcome to, but there's definitely ways you can do that. One of the most popular solutions is putting your video as a slide in your announcements layer, because you can send your announcements layer to your live stream. At my church, we actually have a prop that we use at all times. That's our logo, and it's animated. And so that actually plays all the time on our stream. And so we can just click that prop whenever we want, and that only goes to our live stream. Now that ProPresenter 7.5 is out, we're able to have props turned on in ProPresenter for our live stream and off in person, which is pretty cool. But yeah, you can definitely do that. And we may be able to post in the comments a tutorial for you as well.
Yeah, that's actually it's a great point, and it's a great question because you do need to be able to actually have those specific things that are going to the live stream that are not going to in-house. And so, yeah, because ProPresenter uses multiple layers, and each one of those layers can then be chosen to go out to any one of your screens, whether those actually be connected screens to your computer or to a live stream. You can choose what layers you want. So if you want to do a video, you could play it back on any layer, just so long as it's not that same layer isn't turned on any of your output screens inside the room. Further, you can then do different audio routing. So if you were to actually specify for that video to play out, and it can get, I won't get too deep into the weeds with regards to that, because when you're dealing with audio routing, it can get somewhat complex to kind of conceptualize it mentally. But yeah, there are ways that you could actually stream audio differently than what you're actually streaming in the room. So all kinds of ways to make that happen. But in all cases, whether you're actually using ProPresenter for streaming out or you are using a separate device, whether you're streaming to YouTube or to Facebook or to your own website, I cannot emphasize this enough. Definitely test out your streams. And we, in fact, did with this. We tested everything out yesterday, but there are certain things that are out of our control, like we were talking about with regards to the Facebook stream. But the more experience that you actually have with actually practicing, just like practice makes perfect in so many other areas, youth baseball or otherwise, practice makes perfect when you're talking about doing your live stream, and you don't want to actually be in the middle of the stream and having to scramble to understand why something's not working the way that you actually thought it would. So
yeah, that's good. So Nate, someone asked, does Rezzy send a 1080p stream to all social media?
Yeah, this is a fun one. Actually, I might throw it to Jen.
Okay. Sorry.
More fun. It's complicated would be my short answer. But Jen, you want to elaborate on that one a little more?
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit more of a technical answer. So we do send 1080p to all social destinations, both to our embed code and YouTube and Facebook. However, with the increasing demands of live streaming right now on social media, Facebook has actually asked us to temporarily only send 720p. So we do have a few customers who have been able to stream in 1080p, but almost consistently, Facebook is downscaling to 720p for us.
So it's a huge priority for us. Obviously, quality is a thing that we know is of the utmost priority for us, whether that's a live stream video or even something after the fact. And so we're in constant discussion with them about how do we be able to send as high quality, and we want to try to be able to do that for as many people that really want it as possible, just with kind of the understanding that Facebook takes certain things out of our control sometimes. But we do have the ability to send 1080p to all of those destinations.
Have you guys noticed that it to be true that Facebook, even if they do receive that 1080p signal and send it out, can sometimes struggle more with the 1080p signal versus 720, just because it's harder on their systems because, live streaming has become such a bigger thing?
Yes. So we have noticed that, especially on Sunday mornings when they have a really high volume, even if we are sending 1080p, we've also seen them downscale it down to 720 to help accommodate, and they'll do that in their system.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, so that's probably a good recommendation. Is just, if you are going to use Facebook right now, probably the best solution is 720p. But hopefully in the future, 1080p will be a good option as well.
And
so
again, stream to your website, primary destination 1080p. You'll get higher, you can get a highest quality actually to audio quality as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And we're always having conversations with those social media destinations to see when we can scale it back up. So I know it's a really common ask.
Yeah, that's good to know. Someone said, we currently use ProPresenter 6. We are going to upgrade to begin a live stream of our service. Is ProPresenter 7.5 our best bet? I hear a lot of the conversation being ProPresenter 7. Is one better for what we will be doing? Brad, do you
sorry, it's a good question. ProPresenter 7 is just kind of all-encompassing, whether we're talking about 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, et cetera. So if you buy ProPresenter 7, you will get the latest version and 1 year of all the new features that we actually have that we continue to add, which presumably this time next year we'd be at 7.9 and probably go to 7.10 after that. But yeah, that's when we refer to ProPresenter 7, we're referring to the current version of ProPresenter 7, which happens to be 7.5.1.
Yeah. So if you are going to live stream in the future, ProPresenter could be a great option for you. We're not saying it's the only option out there or the best option. We are saying for a lot of people in a lot of the situations we see, it can be the best option. But yes, 7.5 is just in the next version of 7 that is included with 7 essentially if you purchase it at a certain time. So I was thinking about it like this. Windows 10 came out 10 years ago, but we're still on Windows 10, right? Same thing with Mac OS. They did that for a while. I think they've actually increased their number to a bigger number now, but we're going to be on 7 for a little while. But you get those updates for at least a year as long as you purchase ProPresenter 7. Whatever you purchase it on, you get that version plus a year's worth of updates included. So you could definitely stream with it that way. So someone asked for Rezzy, how successful is Rezzy working on multiple embedded scenarios? So having it in your church app, church online, Rezzy's embed, has it been reliable on an iOS device? Like, are you able to embed it in different locations?
Yeah. So what's cool about the way that we do that is it's only taking your one streaming source and actually sending that out to multiple different destinations from our CDN. So we're doing that whole RSP magic that we talked about, getting it to the cloud perfectly, and then it's actually being sent out to all of those multiple destinations from that one source. And we're doing all the cloud transcoding as well, so we're actually converting it into multiple different bit rates or multiple different qualities. So if your viewers are watching on a lower bandwidth through an embed code, they're going to get the best experience possible. And we do that all from that one perfect source. And by the way, that one perfect source is also what we use for the archive copy as well, which I think is pretty cool because, if you've used a stream file for archive before, you've probably noticed it's going to have all the issues that it had during your stream. All of the connection interruptions, any packet loss or anything that happened along the way, those are essentially recorded. And what's cool is, you can take that copy. That's what we're going to do, for any event that we stream is take that archive copy and then use that for our archive without having to download and trim and re-upload to whatever different, hosting platform that we want.
If I could actually speak to that a little bit too, Nate, because you made me think of something. One of the really cool features that I love about Rezzy, and I've been involved with different projects where they've made great use of this, is the ability to actually set cue points inside your video stream. So when you're going onto Rezzy's interface and previewing the encoder event, which is to say that pristine copy that's been uploaded to the cloud, you can specify cue points within there. So you could actually say a cue point right before the first song and a cue point after the first song, and then export that or download that as a single file that would just be that song, which I think is a really, really cool feature. In addition to setting points that you can actually go right to that when you're linking to a video stream or whatnot. So some really cool functionality that I don't know that people were aware of that you can use Rezzy for.
We kind of use queues, and I think Jen will laugh at this, but queues are kind of this weird term that mean a lot of different things within the Rezzy platform. But they're essentially just points of interest of anything that we would want to be able to create a clip from, or even what we call video review, which I think is really useful because within Rezzy's control we can set up specific user accounts that are a little bit more limited. So that worship team member that we don't want messing with our schedule or our encoder settings, you can set up with a video review account, and then they can go in and then be able to monitor any of the video that's been streamed from any of your encoders, whether that's hardware encoders or ProPresenter or whatever it might be, and be able to create cue points in that as kind of like reference points, like, hey, never do this again, or this was awesome, or whatever.
So someone asked, how well does these softwares and hardwares work with the Mac M1? So I'm going to kind of boil it down to just really the live streaming hardware and software we're talking about, and whether that's Blackmagic Gear or even ProPresenter as the software you're using, and Rezzy's integration with us. I think some of that's probably what we want to talk a little bit more about. But Brad, if you want to talk a little bit about that, that'd be good.
Yeah. So ProPresenter since 7.4, I think we upgraded and actually support the M1 natively for everything that we're actually doing. But there are some components that may have some issues with that. But yes, the short answer is yes, you can use an M1 in Mac Mini to do Rezzy streaming. And that's just going to get better as more of the libraries that we depend upon get optimized for the M1. So as things go on, things will just get better. But yes, you can use, in fact, use the M1 Mac Mini, the new iMacs in whatever color that you wish to choose. So you can use your yellow iMac to stream with Rezzy if you wish to.
Ooh, don't get the yellow one. There's a pink one too, right?
There is a pink and green and yeah.
What was there even a normal color? Was there a gray or something?
Yes, there is a silver.
So. Okay, silver. Don't call it gray because gray would be darker. So there are some things to note about that. NDI is actually fully native now, which is really cool because if you're using NDI just to bring ProPresenter's content from one computer to another, like our church is doing, you're able to do that natively without having to run ProPresenter in Rosetta or your NDI apps in Rosetta. You can just do that natively, and it all works really good. But then the other thing to think about is, depending on what your outside external gear is, you obviously need to make sure that is compatible with the M1 chip as well, and with Big Sur, and with your OS updates. And that's just a normal process with any hardware and software, is just making sure everything that you're using is compatible with what you're going to be upgrading to or buying or investing in, because you don't want to get that and then be stuck with not being able to use it. So one thing to think about is Dante isn't fully supported yet on the M1 chips. So if you use Dante to get audio from your soundboard to your streaming rig, a lot of times people will use Dante from like an X32 to send their audio over data into their DAW or DAW to then mix their sound and bring it into ProPresenter and go to stream from there. You can't use Dante right now on the M1 chips. There are some Dante protocols you can use, like some of their hardware, but you can't use some of their internal stuff. So that's just something to think about. Is Analytics 2.0 available to all Rezzy customers, Nate or Jen?
Yes, it is available to any Rezzy customer. What's really exciting that I haven't even told this to Nate yet, it's also available to all Campus Review viewers now, Ooh. Which is something that a lot of our customers have asked for. So any person that logs into Rezzy can see their analytics.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. Well, it's been an hour, so I just want to thank everyone who's been a part of the stream for joining in with us. For all of you watching, thank you for asking questions. It's been cool to answer them, but we will go back and answer a lot of those in the comments as well. I hope some of the things we talked about will be helpful for you. If not, maybe there's someone in your circle that this conversation would be good to share with, since it could be helpful for them. Definitely make use of that offer that Rezzy is putting out there, because maybe you need to get some new gear. Maybe you want to take your live stream to the next level, or even just want to use that to get started. That's perfect. I know there was a link in the comments that you should be able to follow. We'll also have an email soon that's going out to our customers that will have that email in it for you to be able to, or that link in it for you to be able to follow. So make sure to join us for our next stream and have a great rest of your day.